Prova, prova. Okay. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. And please, ladies and gentlemen, take your seats as we are about to start. And okay, I'm Luca. I'm the comms director at change.org in Italy. And today I have the pleasure to introduce you a sound panel. It is a joint panel between The Guardian, change.org, and Jaha Dukureh. This panel is about a global campaign, a global mobilization campaign to end FGM, to end female genital mutilation all over the world. And at the table today we have, at the center, Mary Carson from The Guardian. Then on the left side there is Elisa Finocchiaro from change.org Italy. And then on the right side, there is Jaha Dukureh, an activist, global activist on this campaign. We want you to have as an active role as possible, so we set aside a good amount of time to have a Q&A session at the end of this panel. So please prepare your questions, because we really want you to interact, to make as much questions as you want. Then, so in terms of structure, we will start now with a powerful video, campaign video from The Guardian. Then each panelist will have a speech of about 10 minutes, and then we will close with another brief video, which is a trailer, we believe a very interesting trailer to watch. And then the Q&A session, so it will be up to you. So please prepare your questions and enjoy the panel. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mary. I'm from The Guardian's Global Media Campaign to End FGM. We just thought at this stage you probably have been talked out a bit, and should I have to slow down, please tell me to do so. So we're just going to show you a video that sort of encapsulates what the campaign hopes it has achieved and thinks it has achieved in the past 18 months that it's been going. Thank you for your attention.
Many of these women and girls feel they have no voice. We as a paper have committed ourselves to an international campaign to eradicate FGM.
It's not culture, it's not religion, it's violation of girls' rights.
Just because it happened to them doesn't mean it should be acceptable for me. It doesn't mean it should be acceptable for the next generation.
This voice has to be heard. My voice, the voice of the voiceless, has to be heard. What are we waiting for when the community is ready for change?
Michael Gove, please write to these schools before the summer holidays, telling them to train the teachers and to teach FGM. We won't back down and we won't go away.
Put an end to female genital mutilation. Let's all say no to women's violation. In the press, page 3, women's humiliation. If they don't know, then they need an education. If girls want help.
This campaign has been a great example of how you can bring together the energy and passion of someone like Pharma, a great small organisation like Integrate, a global platform like The Guardian, and the kind of turbocharged movement building power of change.org, and put them together to deliver something really, really potent. To get the support of nearly 250,000 people, Malala Yousafzai, Ban Ki-moon, a host of celebrities, all kind of mass media all over the country and indeed the world, has been a really quite incredible feat for a 17-year-old woman.
And this is the way journalism can really help make a difference in our world.
I know firsthand the horrors of this practice, and I need your help to end it.
The stigma needs to be fought by all means. Girls need to be empowered. The whole community needs to be sensitized. Media needs to play its role by talking openly or training journalists to speak openly on the effects of FGM.
Back home, and the Guardian's global media campaign to end FGM sponsored an art competition to design a poster warning of the dangers of female genital mutilation.
The campaign was launched with the structures for display being put up in several villages.
This is going to start a conversation about FGM.
Is we've equipped all these activists, brought from all across the country with the tools from social media, the kind that can actually help them revolutionize and catalyze their ideas.
We help other people campaign for themselves. What makes the campaign win? What makes people listen? What makes people sign?
#NFGM Media Academy.
I'm a Gambian first when it comes to it. I can advise their government, but this is where I need to be. This is where I'm needed the most. I'm here with the Guardian to tell them that it's okay for them as journalists to report these stories. It's about your passion, it's about your commitment. We all have a moral obligation when it comes to ending FGM, and we want you guys to be a part of that.
The Gambian government has introduced a ban on female genital mutilation.
From Carson to Koina, FGM is banned as from today from the surface of this country.
The announcement at the rally was met with huge cheers and applause as the country moves to eradicate the barbaric practice.
For 21 years, I've been researching to see where it is stated in the Quran that
the ban alone is not enough. It's going to take activists to use media and other platforms to make sure that the message reaches the people that it needs to reach, to make sure the communities are sensitized.
You don't have a choice. It's either you're caught or you're seen like an outcast in the community.
From what I'm seeing, I'm looking at it about 94–95%.
Of
circumcised people.
And we still have a lot of work to do so that the statistics can drop, because what we have is still very high.
It's still high.
The wife of the president, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, has emphasized the need to have a coordinated campaign to end female genital mutilation in Nigeria.
We've come from the grassroots. We have the answers.
We're the people that can take this back to our communities and ask them for that change.
They're only waiting for us to take the message to them and tell them what you're feeling is right.
Look at all the amazing things that I'm doing. I'm going to say that. I'm doing one hell of a job.
So thank you for watching. I'm making an assumption, I realized just before I started talking, that everybody knew what female genital mutilation is. It's a process by which children, babies, young women have their parts of their genitalia removed, either from the clitoris itself. There's 4 different types. One is the removal of the clitoris, one is the removal of the labia and the clitoris. The third is infibulation, where the labia and the clitoris is removed, and also the rest of the vaginal opening is sewn up so that there is a very, very tiny hole left to allow women to urinate and have their periods. And the fourth, it covers all other possible forms of any mutilation of the female genitalia. This media campaign started the way most things started, The Guardian, which is as a story. It started as an investigation into how there were political failures that were failing women in Kurdistan. and in the UK, and allowing FGM not just to remain prevalent, but to continue to grow. And the practice was not being tackled. It wasn't considered an area of cultural importance. Maggie O'Kane, the journalist and the founder of the media campaign at The Guardian, had watched as everybody got behind the Guardian's journalism on Snowden and hacking newspapers and things like that, and took all of the information to morning conference at The Guardian and challenged the then editor, Alan Rusbridger, to show the same commitment as he'd shown to the Snowden and the hacking stories, to something that affected 200 million women and girls worldwide. Luckily, he thought it was a good plan. He realized that the story hadn't been told enough, and he committed resources and agreed to give Maggie and myself and other reporters the time to really look into female genital mutilation, find out what was going on, and have a look at how we could better help with passing on relevant information, verifying information on the ground. It worked, and as it started out as telling a lot of stories and a plan to present media. So we were charging in on our white horses, thinking we were great, and we were going on a mission where we would basically do all of the films, and we would hoover up all of the information, and we would put it out there on the Guardian's platform. And then we realized, after meeting Falma Mohammed, after meeting Jaha Dukureh here, and after meeting Dumtila Cheshang-Lurema, who you also saw in the film, from Kenya, that actually we didn't know what we were talking about, and it wasn't up to us to impose the story on women who were facing opposition, lack of information, ignorance from their communities, and also a complete failure to tackle the story and consider it of any importance by the national media in their countries. So we realized that what we could possibly do was a media campaign, and that media campaign would not be aimed at us doing the campaigning. It would be aimed at us passing on the tools and the skills that we had to enable other people to do the campaigning. And where we found campaigning going on in isolated areas, then we would enable that by trying to inform people how they could use a basic mobile phone as a voice recorder. And they could take that story and they could bring it to the community radio stations that they knew, and they could run an interview just from one single recording. We taught them how to verify stories, and we also taught them that any platform is a good platform for sharing a story and enabling that story to sort of go up and start on its journey, perhaps to then appear in mainstream media. The other side of that was that we we used the Guardian platform to open doors. It's as simple as that. People wanted to talk to us when we went to Kenya and the Gambia and now Nigeria. They wanted to know what they could do to help. Ban Ki-moon got involved because he saw it as journalism doing something, and actually realizes as well, to his credit and to the credit of others in the UNFPA, that this isn't mission impossible. This isn't something that we can't do. In fact, the impact that we've had just with this media campaign alone, on top of the other work that's been done over the past 30 years, and the work with activists such as Jaha, is a testament to that. And what we've done is no more or no less than amplify ongoing work. We have just amplified. We have used the press as the press is used to amplify the work by attaching it to stories, by introducing activists to journalists, by partnering with UNFPA and persuading them, after speaking to the media houses in Kenya and the Gambia, that actually news desks in Kenya and the Gambia aren't the same as news desks in the UK. They don't have the resources to let a reporter travel for 2 days to go into the interior of a country after a story. So we suggested that UNFPA would partner with us on a series of grants that journalists could apply for, so that their bosses could relieve them, because their expenses would be paid and there would be a bit of money to backfill so the news desk was still covered. So in essence, that's how it started, that's how it's continued. In The Guardian, we have, since the Global Media Campaign started, we've seen movement towards that type of, I wouldn't call it campaigning, I'd call it campaigning journalism. We have had the Keep It in the Ground media campaign, which basically presented a very, very strong case, all based on hard journalism, for divestment from fossil fuels, leave it in the ground. And more recently, we had a project where we reported on Britain's National Health Service, which is free at the point of service. That is coming under threat now, but there was a 3-week project that concentrated as much of the resources as possible, video, social media, on reporting what challenges the National Health Service faced, what changes needed to be put in place. So it's gone on, it's been an example. There have been massive challenges and massive learnings, but because we've worked in partnership with people who know what they're doing, to my left and to my right, we've had really good guidance. To be fair, we could have done a limited amount, which is why we partnered with Change.org and why we're still working with Change.org. We could have done a limited amount. We could have put it out on the platform, and we could have put it out there with all of that other noise that exists out there that needs to be filtered, that needs to be curated. And if the political lack of will to do anything about a problem that affected so many millions of women was anything to go by, not a lot of people were going to read it. And at the time, we met John Coventry from Change.org. He made a suggestion, maybe you might want us to come and have a wee word with you and explain what we do. And we realized that actually we could put the content out, and if we put it out in partnership with, as he calls it, this turbocharged platform for movement change, then we could really get a greater and larger reach than we could on our own. And that's what's happened, and I think it's happened very effectively. I hope I haven't bored you. I think you'll have loads of questions at the end, so I'll save the rest of it for then.
Good afternoon. My name is Elisa, and I lead Change.org work in Italy. For those of you who don't know what's Change.org, Change.org is an online petition platform empowering 140 million people all around the world to start, join, and win campaigns they care about. Currently in Italy, we are a social change tool for more than 5 million people. In the last years, we have seen this rising trend of news organizations like The Guardian using our platform to further support the stories they were working on. And we have seen many examples. I'm going to tell you about just few of them, but in Italy we have seen Il Fatto Quotidiano using our platform. We have seen Le Iene using our platform, or Wired using our platform when calling the Italian government to release data around asbestos pollution. Internationally, we have seen a lot of partnership like The Independent, The Sun, Vice, The Washington Post, and they were all focusing on very different issues. Just to give you some example, The Independent was using our platform to call the UK government to commit more on the refugee crisis, or The Washington Post, together with Vice, was asking oppressive regimes to release their journalists being detained. But one of the most successful partnerships we have seen is exactly this one, the one on the End FGM campaign started by The Guardian. Because this kind of campaign really embodies what we do mean for empowerment. Sorry. So in January 2014, The Guardian got in touch with us because they wanted to give voice to affected communities. And this petition was started by Fama, this young girl in the UK, and she was asking through the petition to teach risks of FGM in the UK schools. In a few days, she gathered 100,000 signatures. She was received by the Minister of Education, and she achieved what she wanted. So the minister agreed to say yes to what Fama was asking. And these show the virtuous engagement cycle, both for the platform and for The Guardian, because readers of The Guardian were pushed to further engage by signing the petition on our platform, and vice versa. Change.org users were pushed back to The Guardian to read further content on the campaign. And so this created a very virtuous cycle. And this was possible thanks to the update tool that we have on our platform. And miles away, the woman we have here today, Jaha, she was inspired by this to start her petition in the US, calling the US government to create a commission reporting and investigating on women affected by FGM in the US. And she obtained that too. And she became one of the strongest voices against FGM in the world. But then we had to do something more. We had to go back to grassroots communities and empower those communities in affected countries to run campaigns their own way. And this is why Change.org sent its staff to Kenya and to the Gambia. And I personally had the chance to participate to one of these workshops in the Gambia. That's the picture you can see there. And in this workshop, that was the End FGM Media Academy that The Guardian organized, we were working together with more than 30 activists and journalists locally. So we started the workshop with this news. This is an imam that is stating that FGM is a good practice. And 10 days after, more or less, we could read this other news. And this was only possible thanks to the incredible work that Jaha had done while the president was on a national tour across Gambia. She lobbied the president and she obtained a law banning FGMs. But then it was very, very clear that despite there was a law, this was not enough to have the practice ending. And for example, in Kenya, where there was already a law banning FGMs, there was still the practice going on because you really need an awareness campaign that can empower people to know that they can stop these in their own lives. And in order to do this awareness campaign, you really need to be with the people that are aiming to run this awareness campaign, which are local activists and local journalists. And so when we were there, we had this chance, but at the same time, we were facing a challenge. Because as an online petition platform, we were facing a context, an information technology context that was very different from the one we are used to work in. And we were facing a country in which radio is the biggest communication tool, and online tools are used mainly via mobile. And so we decided to, what could we do as Change.org staff in the Gambia? We mainly facilitated attendees there to answer to 3 questions. These 3 questions were: who is practicing FGM, who can stop FGM, and who are the influencers that can help this change in ending FGM? And it was very successful because the outcome in few days was a regional and national awareness campaign plan to end FGM. That was including very specific personalities, stakeholders, decision makers, influencers, and calibrated messages to all these people. So what I want to say is that despite technical means really change from context to context, communication, especially the online one, is the most powerful tool in activists' hands to run a bottom-up campaign that will lead motivated people to have their voices heard. And when a very powerful media like The Guardian meet grassroots activists and join citizen voices thanks to the empowerment given by the online tools, something very powerful, new, and disruptive of the status quo is generated. And to go back with what I said at the beginning regarding news organization in this rising trend of using our platform, as Mary was saying before as well, here today I would like to invite you as journalists here to keep this trend going on, because it's really an important tool that we have in our hands. And for Change.org, campaign like the End FGM one run by The Guardian are the proof of our concept that powerful storytelling, together with the connectivity of the internet, can create impactful change everywhere in the world. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Jaha Dukureh, and I am an activist against the practice of FGM. After seeing what Fahma and The Guardian had done on Change.org with the campaign in the UK, it inspired me to do something in the US. I didn't think it was possible. I remember all my friends and my Facebook friends, everyone telling me, you're crazy, you can't get the Obama administration to do anything about this. And I didn't think anything would happen, but once I started my petition, The Guardian backed it. And the Change.org team were very, very supportive and always there on the phone with me, giving me advice and giving me tips, even how to talk to the media, arranging a lot of my media interviews. And to me, that empowered me, and that kind of gave me the strength to keep pushing and continue what I was doing. And after we won the Change.org petition, I remember when I first met Mary Carson, I told Mary Carson, over the years, I've done a lot of work in the media, but mostly in shadow and not using my name. Because when you're dealing with a sensitive issue like FGM, and being from a practicing community and having undergone the practice myself, I wasn't ready to expose myself out there, and I was scared that I would just be another story in the media and the journalists will come cover my story and then move on with their lives. And when I met Mary, one of the first things that I told Mary was, this is why I don't put myself out there. This is why I don't use my name. This is why I don't use my face, because I'm worried that you guys will just come, do a story about me, and then move on with your lives. I'll never hear from you. I'll never see you again. And I remember Mary telling me that we'll always be there, we won't go away. And I felt the same way, that Change.org was just another platform that I can start a petition, but I didn't really realize that these are people that are going to stay with me, stay on this campaign for as long as it needs to be. And Mary told me that they'll be around, and it's been almost 2 years since we started this. And The Guardian is here, and Change.org is here. After the success that we had in the US, I decided that I wanted to take this campaign back to the Gambia and start a youth-led movement. In the Gambia, for instance, there has been national campaigns that have been going on for the past 30 years, but FGM hasn't gone down, and the government didn't ban it. And when we were in Gambia back in, I think it was in November. Yeah. So when we were in Gambia back in November, while the Guardian and Change.org team were working with the activists, I decided to leave during the first day of the training, and because I knew that the president was on tour, and figure out how I can. And one of the good things that I like about the Change.org and the Guardian partnership is it helped me know how to lobby. It helped me know how to negotiate, how to work with high government officials, how to make them listen to what I had to say, and how to use a powerful name like the Guardian backing me to open doors and get to where I need to be. And that's what I did in the Gambia. When I met with the president's cabinet, I told them exactly what we were doing. And I also told them how this can help showcase Gambia in a good life in the press. Because when you look at Gambia, when you look at the history of the country, you don't necessarily hear good things about Gambia. But for them to come out and have a strong position on FGM would bring another type of interest to the country. The international media would report on them banning FGM rather than all the negative things that were going on. And I think because of that, the president listened to what I had to say and saw value in what I had to say. And I think deep down, he also really cared about this issue. It was something that was just never brought to his attention. And it was like our approach to campaigning. And I think that's what I love about our partnership with The Guardian. We get rid of the bureaucracy. We get rid of a lot of the things that happen with a lot of big foundations that are working on this issue, and we take it straight to the forefront, to the people that need to listen to what we have to say, to the governments that need to take action. In the Gambia, it worked, and we've done similar thing with Damtela in Kenya and now in Nigeria. I think for me, as journalists that are in this room, what I want to say to you is that everyone in this world has a moral obligation to end female genital mutilation. Currently, there are 200 million women that are living with this practice around the world. It's not only an African issue. FGM happens in the Middle East. FGM happens in India. FGM is happening in Indonesia. For instance, Indonesia is the third country with the most amount of women living with this issue, but there's not a lot of data out there. There's not a lot of information out there. And I think as journalists, you have a moral obligation to raise awareness. You have a moral obligation to make sure that the world knows that 200 million women are living without their full potential because of something that was forced on them, because of something that was imposed on them. And if we're going to end this practice, it takes all of us. It doesn't matter whether you've been through FGM or not. Think about it as this happening to you. Think about it as it's happening to your daughter, your sister, or your neighbor. I mean, it's not right and it's not fair. And I think now more than ever, we need to show the world that we are ready to end this. And journalism has helped me do what I do. When I first met The Guardian and when I first started working with Change.org, I didn't even have the confidence to speak out. But knowing that I have both platforms for me, and the fact that they even came all the way to my home country, the fact that they helped me change the law in my home country, to me, it's something that I'll forever be indebted to both organizations for, and I believe that the lives that are being saved in the Gambia will forever be indebted. And I know that this campaign has huge potential to change what's happening, not only in the Gambia, but globally. But it takes more of a collective effort for us to get there. And I believe all of you being in this room, I hope that what both me, Mary, and Alicia has shared will inspire you to join the movement to help us get this to where it needs to be. And I don't have a lot to say because I don't want to bore you guys, and I'll answer questions that all of you have. And I think that's it.
We'd like to show you, just because we are a media platform or a media organization, and as part of this approach to this particular campaign, we've been following Jaha for the past 2.5 years with a film crew. The documentary, an independent feature documentary, will be a Guardian Accidental Pictures co-production, and it will premiere in June of this year. So we have distribution deals in place, and it's the way that this platform has been able to use. We've been able to put distribution deals in place for the countries that can afford to pay. We're putting another structure in place where the documentary will be cut and translated and also distributed in the villages and in the languages and dialects where it needs to be heard in the countries where there's high prevalence of the practice. So we've just got a short 4-minute trailer, and then after that we'll take some questions. Thank you.
They never talk to me about the pain. And they don't tell you that sex is going to hurt forever. It's just not a conversation that we have. We have a culture of silence. Our tradition is infibulation. And the reason why we do infibulation is to keep us virgins until we get married, because when you're infibulated, you can't really have sex until you're cut back open. This is the kind of FGM. They never talk to me about the pain. And they don't tell you that sex is going to hurt forever. It's just not a conversation that we have. We have a culture of silence. Our tradition is infibulation. And the reason why we do infibulation is to keep us virgins until we get married, because when you're infibulated, you can't really have sex until you're cut back open. This is the kind of FGM that was performed on me as well as all my sisters. When I was 15, I was brought to America by my dad to get married to the guy that I was promised to marry. When I met him, he was in his 40s. And then I was taken to a doctor in downtown Manhattan because I couldn't have sex until they defibrillated me. I needed to be reopened in order for me to have sex. That's like probably the worst and scariest day of my life because I cried the whole time. I didn't want to be there. The marriage didn't last but a few months because I just couldn't take it. I think the biggest problem that we have with FGM is usually when parents send their kids back home and have them mutilated and then bring them back. Something has to change. With me having a daughter, it was like, you can't say this can't happen to my daughter and then watch other people's daughters go through it. It's not fair.
Are you guys ready?
Just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you can't grow up to be everything that you want to be. What do you think will happen to them if you do end up taking them back to Gambia?
Same thing that happened to me. They're gonna get mutilated.
FGM is grounds for asylum in the United States.
Hi, how are you guys?
In the bottom.
To do that.
On the Panama Papers by talking about the fact that there are leaders and celebrities that have been corrupt by, you know, telling the stories that involve that. It's the same with FGM. I think you have to apply the same journalistic rigor. So the decision to tell a story about FGM, if we hear a story in the Kenya, we don't just go, it must be true because somebody says it's happened. We actually have a better mechanism now for verifying those stories because we have media activists in the area and we know journalists who verify those stories. And I think that that sort of is disingenuous to the job that we do as journalists. There's two reasons you could say why you're a journalist. One, because you like writing and you want to see people respond to your writing. They want to know, is there a step I can take after reading or viewing this that will enable me to change, touch and feel that problem and perhaps not be overwhelmed by the information, but to do something active on it. So I do think it's perspective. You could say we're all really hard on the 1% and the corruption that we're seeing in the Panama Papers, or you could say that we're telling stories. And I think because we're very, very firm and strict about the fact that all of the stories have to meet our editorial criteria, we can avoid the accusations that we are campaigners. We're not. We are facilitating campaigners. We're enabling them by training them in the media and also by using the platform we have to amplify the stories that are theirs.
I would want to add to what Mary said. I think as journalists, if you heard that parents were ripping off, they were cutting the ears of their children, or they were cutting off their noses, or cutting off any of their body parts, as a journalist, you will be outraged and you will want to take a position on that. You will want to report on that. FGM is a gross human rights violation. When we think about 200 million women that are living with that practice, are we saying that because those people are out there, we can't take a position on that? We can't say that what's happening to them is wrong, and that's how you have to look at it. You have to look at women that are not reaching their full potential because something happened to them, something that they had no say in. And I think when we look at FGM, when I see the Guardian taking a position or Change.org supporting what we're doing, I don't see it as them taking a political position, because when we need to look at this out of a political position, there's wrong and there's right. FGM is wrong. As a woman that have been through it, as a woman that's from that community, I decided to take that stand, and I don't think you need to be from that community or you need to have experienced that to know that this is wrong and it's something that needs to end, and journalists have a role in that.
Yeah, and to complement with that, The Guardian and Change.org empowered what Jaha and Fama and affected communities were proposing as a solution. So there was like a following part that is the proposal, the change you want to see that has been put back forward from other kind of actors.
Hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to ask you, I'm from Cameroon, but I stay in Kenya. And this story is not talked about so much there. But the thing is, what we know is if they don't go through FGM, their communities will not accept them. They'll live marginalized for the rest of their lives. So even if we tell the story and end the FGM, what next for them?
I think, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll speak from a media point of view. Coverage in Kenya is gradually increasing, and what we're trying to do is that the problem in Kenya has been sort of that the coverage hasn't been diversified, so it hasn't been going where it was wanted. When I went into the regions to do research and asked people, do you read, where do you get your news? They don't get it from TV because there are no TVs. They get it from people coming to the school with laptops and USBs and playing content to them. When we asked, how do you read? How many read? Very few of them read. Everything has to be visual. When we asked what best can we do, what media can we use to pass on the message to the communities that they need to see that there are health effects, bad health effects to do with FGM, in the hope, based on research that we'd seen and heard, that once that is placed in front of a community, they think twice, because they think, what, it might affect my daughter's fertility? That's bad. It might affect, because that will affect the value. We need to change the value structures, but first of all, we need to get the basic information through. So the way that we did it was a suggestion that came from the community was a poster campaign. And at first we were flummoxed. We do media. And then the response from the community came, yeah, that's our media, a poster, it's a piece of media. And we realized actually they're right. So Domtilla, with our help, we engaged an artist and we were able to create a poster competition, which then delivered a poster that was shown at 7 major market towns where all of the local people met at least 1 day per week. The learning there was that we thought that was as far as it went. We stick the posters up, they'll stay there. We have the local communities permission for them to be there, it's all fine. Until we got a call from Domtilla at the first positioning of the poster going, oh my God, there are dozens of people turning up here and none of them know about FGM. We didn't think this would happen. So what the media had done was open up a space for advocacy. It opened up a space for dialogue. As a result of that, some of the Moran warriors that are in charge of a lot of the social etiquette in that area found out about what FGM was for the first time. They had spent their lives doing war dances around the huts to ensure nobody heard the girls' screams, and they didn't understand what was going on inside the hut. Then now they did, and they are actually one of the groups that is getting Power Up activist grants from The Guardian to be able to, and to enable them to form their own media. So we also work with NGOs, because obviously it's not, and we can't go in, tell them this should change, or enable the activists to tell them this should change, and then walk away and leave them to deal with the horrific results in some cases of that kind of interference. So we're not working alone, we're working with NGOs and community organizations in these areas so that there's backup, so that if somebody runs away from home because of a piece of information they have heard about FGM, they know the nearest rescue centre, the nearest counsellor, the nearest midwife that they can go to. It's going to be a slow process. You know, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it can happen within this generation.
I think to add on what she was saying is, like for instance, our organization, we take a holistic approach because we understand that women that haven't been cut don't necessarily are accepted in the community, and a lot of time there are men that would say that they won't marry a girl that's uncut because they are unclean, and there's all this stigma around women that are uncut in general. And what we try to do is we try to work with religious leaders, we try to work with young people. It's about changing attitudes, it's about changing mindsets to get in where men can comfortably say, I'm willing to marry a girl that's uncut. And we focus a lot of the work that we do on young people in the younger generation, because when you think about my parents, they've cut most of their daughters and it's over with. But the people that are at the stage of childbearing, the future fathers, the future mothers, we have an opportunity to make sure that it stops with us, and that's what we focus on. We use Twitter, for instance, we use Facebook to try to get our message out, to try to open discussions and open that dialogue. Like Mary said, it's not an easy process, but I think having that holistic approach wherein we're working with media, we're working with young people, we're working with religious leaders, is going to accelerate that process, and that's what we're trying to do.
And just very briefly, I'd like to add this outcome from the workshop in the Gambia, because of course the communication channels are very different, but what was very useful there was to do this power mapping, identifying all the actors involved into the process so that the communication could be calibrated exactly to influencers or decision makers and so on. So to understand the phenomenon according to the power mapping, it was very useful.
And also keeping it within the media, we did a one-day, prior to the course that you went on the Media Academy, we did a one-day training on FGM for Gambian journalists. The information minister turned up to open it and challenged the journalists for the first time. Bring us evidence. If you bring us evidence, then the government's going to have to make change. 4 days after that media conference, there was Gambia's first piece of investigative journalism into FGM in the east of the country. It had never been tackled before. It hadn't been visited by a lot of campaigners and NGOs, never mind a journalist. So there is results in the media. There is a pressure that you can put, and there is stories that can be told, and you can basically give journalists the confidence to know that we've got their back. Because a lot of these journalists take bigger risks than we'll ever take when we walk outside our doors here, London, or in the US.
I think there is time for one last question, right? There was a question over there.
Thanks. You first started your story saying that everything started with a story, with an investigation. And my question is, GFM is a long-standing tragedy, let's say. Why did this story become interesting for you exactly in 2014? What happened that activated your interest as The Guardian?
It was, first of all, it was Maggie O'Kane, who couldn't be here because she's in the Atlantic somewhere, we think. Maggie had a long-standing interest in it. I was working separately as a freelance journalist, and I came across a story, and I had a long-standing interest in it. And basically, it was actually in response to a lot of boys' stories. You know, it was the frustration. It was seeing Edward Snowden and seeing the massive coverage that story got. Seeing Hackett, and rightfully so, they got this massive coverage. But every time you approached them about a very, very physical story of abuse that involved women, it was sort of like pat in the head and off you go. You know, yes, you can have, we'll tell your story, but off you go. And we knew it needed something more fundamental than that. So when the gauntlet was offered, Maggie picked it up and took it to the editor of The Guardian. So I think it was coming. It was going to happen one way or another. If it wasn't us, it was going to be others. Also, there's a newspaper in London called the Evening Standard, and their editor, like Maggie, they were about the only two high management editorial voices that were stating an opinion and telling stories about FGM at the time. So I think it was just a matter of time before it would have happened. And it was just that it was such a gross example and such an intimate example of abuse, particularly when you consider that, you know, most of these young women are cut at a time when they haven't a clue what's happened to them and no idea of the context of what that will mean to them in the future? Okay.
Can we do another final question? No. Okay, no final question. They are kicking us out of the room, so...
We're about outside anyway for a while, if anybody wants to come and have a chat. And thank you very much for giving us the platform on the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, we're done.
Yes.
So nerve-wracking, you're so good. You're just so pretty cool. I thought you were, I was like, she is the ice maiden, she is totally right, totally.
Okay, I'll come outside.
No problem, thank you. You all right?
But it's not fair because we started later. I'd like to, when I go back, I'd like to get involved.
Yeah, come on out here. We have to leave room for another panel. All right.